The signal in the ice. The Antarctic wind howled across the research station's reinforced walls as Dr. Elena Rivera stared at her monitor, running the scan for the fourth time. The reading couldn't be right. Yet there it was again. A perfect geometric pattern of energy signatures emanating from 3 kilometers beneath the ice sheet. "Hey, Jackson," she called out, her voice tight with controlled excitement. "Can you verify something for me?" Dr. Jackson Chen looked up from his own workstation, where he'd been analyzing ice core samples. He rolled his chair across the cramped research module, the sound of wheels on metal flooring barely audible over the eternal Antarctic wind. "What have you got?" he asked, adjusting his thick-rimmed glasses. His eyes widened as he took in the display. "That's not possible." "That's what I thought." Elena pulled up a 3-dimensional rendering of the signal pattern. "But I've run it 4 times now. Whatever's down there, it's generating quantum-entangled particles in a synchronized sequence. The pattern is too precise to be natural." Jackson's fingers flew across the keyboard, overlaying various analytical filters. "These energy signatures, they're similar to what we detected in those cave paintings in Argentina last month, but orders of magnitude more complex." Elena nodded, bringing up a comparison scan. The resemblance was undeniable. The same intricate geometrical patterns that had baffled archaeologists worldwide were now pulsing beneath kilometers of ancient ice. But while the cave paintings had been static images, these patterns were active, dynamic, and seemed to be growing stronger. "Director Wells needs to see this," Jackson said, already reaching for the satellite phone. Before he could dial, every screen in the research module flickered. The lights dimmed momentarily, and Elena felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. Static electricity crackled across her keyboard. "What the hell?" Jackson muttered, checking the station's power readings. "Main generators fine. But these energy spikes air." He was cut off by a sound that seemed to bypass their ears entirely, resonating directly in their bones. Deep beneath the ice, something was awakening. The satellite phone rang, startling them both. Elena answered it with shaking hands. "Dr. Rivera." The voice belonged to Director Wells, and she'd never heard him sound so urgent. "Are you detecting any unusual activity?" "Yes, sir. We've got some kind of energy signature about 3 kilometers down. It's unlike anything we've—" "It's not just you," he interrupted. "We're getting similar reports from research stations across Antarctica." "But that's not all." He paused, and Elena could hear the strain in his voice. "Teams in the Arctic Circle, the Gobi Desert, and the Amazon Basin are all reporting identical signatures. Whatever you're detecting down there, it's part of something global." Elena's mind raced. The cave paintings had been discovered simultaneously on different continents, all bearing the same impossible mathematical patterns. "Now this." "Sir," she said, her scientific training warring with what she was about to suggest, "I think we need to consider the possibility that these aren't separate phenomena. The cave paintings, these energy signatures, they're connected. And they're getting stronger." "I agree," Wells replied. "That's why I'm authorizing an immediate deep ice survey at your location. The Chinese are already drilling at their station, and the Russians are mobilizing equipment. Whatever's down there, we need to find it first." After the call ended, Elena and Jackson stood in stunned silence, watching the energy patterns pulse across their screens. Each wave seemed stronger than the last, as if whatever lay beneath the ice was gradually building power. "Elena," Jackson said softly, pointing to a new data stream, "look at the quantum signature's frequency. It's matching human brainwave patterns during REM sleep." Before she could respond, every piece of equipment in the module activated simultaneously. Screens filled with cascading data, printers spooled out endless streams of calculations, and their quantum sensors nearly overloaded from the sudden surge in activity. "It's not just broadcasting energy," Elena whispered, watching the patterns resolve into recognizable forms. "It's broadcasting information. Massive amounts of it." The data streams coalesced into a 3-dimensional hologram hovering above their main display. Elena gasped as she recognized the image. A perfect star map, showing stellar configurations that hadn't existed for thousands of years. "Jackson," she said, her voice trembling with the magnitude of what they were witnessing, "I don't think we're discovering alien artifacts." He nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. "We're rediscovering our own history." The wind outside grew stronger, as if nature itself was responding to the awakening taking place beneath the ice. Somewhere in the distance, they heard the low rumble of approaching heavy machinery. The race to uncover humanity's true legacy had begun. Around the world, other researchers were making similar discoveries. In the Gobi Desert, a team of archaeologists watched in amazement as ancient petroglyphs began to glow with the same quantum signature. Deep in the Amazon, indigenous shamans reported ancestral sites emanating strange lights and sounds. And in the Arctic Circle, Norwegian scientists detected geometric patterns forming in the aurora borealis, perfectly matching the signals from beneath the ice. Elena stared at the star map still hovering above their display, its ancient light casting strange shadows across the module's interior. Each point of light seemed to pulse in rhythm with the energy signatures below, creating a symphony of light and quantum resonance that spoke of secrets long buried in ice and time. "We should start the preliminary drilling calculations," Jackson said, but Elena barely heard him. Her attention was fixed on a new pattern emerging in the data stream, one that seemed hauntingly familiar. "That's impossible," she breathed, pulling up her own genetic sequencing results from a medical study last year. The pattern in her DNA matched perfectly with the quantum signature pulsing beneath the ice. Whatever they were about to discover down there, it wasn't just humanity's past. It was encoded into their very beings, waiting for the right moment to awaken. The module's lights flickered again as another surge of energy rippled through the ice. This time, the sound that followed wasn't just a resonance. It was a message, carried on waves of quantum entanglement. "Welcome home, children of Earth. You have finally learned to listen." Awakening. The drilling platform shuddered as it bore through another layer of ancient ice. Dr. Elena Rivera watched the depth counter tick past 2 kilometers, her breath fogging the reinforced window of the control module. 3 days had passed since their initial discovery, and the world had changed more in those 72 hours than in the previous century. "Moscow team just hit something at their site," Jackson announced, looking up from his tablet. "Some kind of metallic structure. They're saying it's giving off the same quantum signature as ours." Elena nodded, unsurprised. The past 3 days had brought similar reports from excavation sites worldwide. The Chinese team had discovered a crystalline chamber in the Gobi Desert. Brazilian researchers had found a network of tunnels beneath the Amazon, their walls inscribed with flowing scripts that seemed to shift and change when observed. "What's our status?" she asked, turning to Dr. Sarah O'Neill, their quantum mechanics expert who'd been flown in from CERN the day after their discovery. Sarah's fingers danced across her holographic display, manipulating complex data streams. "The quantum entanglement patterns are intensifying. But there's something else." She frowned, adjusting her calculations. "These aren't just random emissions. They're responding to us, to our presence, to our DNA." The control module's main screen suddenly flashed with incoming data. Director Wells appeared in a video window, his usually composed face showing signs of strain. "Dr. Rivera, are you seeing this? The quantum signatures, they're appearing in populated areas now. Tokyo, New York, London. People are reporting strange lights, unexplained phenomena. And," he hesitated, "some of them are starting to remember things. Things they couldn't possibly know." Elena felt a familiar tingling at the base of her skull, a sensation that had been growing stronger as they got closer to their target. "What kind of things, sir?" "Star charts, engineering principles, mathematical concepts that our best minds are still struggling to verify. A teenager in Mumbai just wrote out the complete blueprints for what appears to be a quantum propulsion system. She claims she saw it in a dream." The drilling platform shuddered again, more violently this time. Warning lights flashed across the control panel as their sensors detected a massive void opening up beneath them. "We've found it," Jackson breathed, staring at the sonar display. 3 kilometers down, directly beneath us. Some kind of chamber. Elena felt it before she saw it. A surge of recognition so powerful it brought tears to her eyes. The sensation wasn't coming from her mind, but from somewhere deeper, more primal. From her very cells. "It's not just a chamber," she said, understanding flooding through her. "It's a library. Our library." The platform's lights flickered as a new energy wave pulsed through the ice. Around the world, similar pulses emanated from every discovery site, creating a network of quantum resonance that encircled the planet. Sarah's instruments began registering unprecedented readings. The quantum fields are aligning. Whatever these sites are, they're working in concert, creating some kind of... She trailed off, staring at her display in disbelief. "Some kind of what?" Jackson pressed. "A key," Sarah whispered. "They're creating a key that matches human genetic sequences perfectly. Not just generally, it's matching individual DNA patterns. Everyone's genetic code is starting to resonate with these signals in slightly different ways." Elena's tablet chimed with an urgent message from the genetics team in Geneva. Her hand shook as she read it aloud. "Preliminary analysis suggests that certain sequences in human DNA, previously dismissed as jump code, are actually encrypted data storage. The quantum signals appear to be triggering a controlled activation of these sequences." "Look at this," Jackson called out, directing their attention to the main screen. News feeds from around the world showed people gathering in streets and squares, drawn by an inexplicable urge to congregate near the sites of quantum activity. In each location, the same phenomenon was occurring. Soft lights appearing around people's hands and faces, pulsing in harmony with the global network of signals. Director Wells' voice crackled through their comm system again. "Dr. Rivera, the president is asking for answers. What exactly are we dealing with here?" Elena watched as the drilling platform sensors detected movement in the chamber below. Something was rising through the ice, drawn toward them by the same force that pulled at her consciousness. "Sir," she replied, certainty filling her voice, "we're dealing with the greatest inheritance in human history. Our ancestors didn't leave us. They became us. And now..." She paused as the ice beneath them began to glow with an inner light. "Now we're ready to remember who we really are." The chamber below emitted a pulse of energy that shattered the remaining ice between them, revealing its secrets at last. As Elena stared into the ascending void, she understood that humanity was about to take its first steps into a future that had been waiting for them since before recorded history began. Around the world, millions of people looked up at the sky with new eyes, seeing not an insurmountable barrier, but a road home they had forgotten they knew how to travel. The awakening wasn't just beginning. It had been part of the plan all along. In the control module, Elena watched as streams of data began flowing across every screen, each bit of information resonating with something deep in her DNA. They weren't just receiving information. They were remembering it, as if every human on Earth had been carrying a backup of their species' knowledge in their genes, waiting for the right moment to access it. "It was never about finding alien technology," she said softly, understanding at last. "It was about remembering our own." The memory cascade. The Antarctic chamber stretched before them, its crystalline walls pulsing with stored knowledge. Dr. Elena Rivera stood at its entrance, her heart pounding as ancient memories flickered at the edges of her consciousness. Behind her, the research team waited in reverent silence, each feeling the same pull of recognition. "The first memories are starting to stabilize," Sarah reported, monitoring the global quantum network through her enhanced sensors. "We're receiving reports from every continent. It's not just random information. It's a coordinated awakening." Elena stepped into the chamber, drawn by an intuition she couldn't explain. The crystalline walls responded to her presence, illuminating pathways that seemed to lead deeper into Earth's hidden history. Each step brought new fragments of understanding, like pieces of a vast puzzle finally falling into place. "These aren't just memories," she said, her voice echoing in the ancient space. "They're lessons, everything humanity has accomplished. Our art, our science, our endless drive to explore. It was all part of the curriculum." Jackson followed her, his tablet recording unprecedented levels of quantum activity. The Russian team just reported something similar. They're saying the memories appear to be organized into learning sequences, like chapters in a book, each building on the last. The chamber's central platform activated as they approached, projecting a holographic display that filled the vast space. Elena gasped as she recognized the images. They showed Earth as it had been 50,000 years ago, but not as ancient humans had known it. The planet was covered in advanced cities, their spires reaching toward the stars. "My God," Sarah whispered, watching the simulation. "We weren't primitive survivors struggling to evolve. We were students in the most ambitious educational program ever conceived." The hologram shifted, showing their ancestors making a deliberate choice. The advanced civilization wasn't destroyed by catastrophe or war. It transformed itself. Elena watched in amazement as the cities were carefully dismantled, their technology preserved but hidden, waiting for future generations to rediscover it through their own efforts. They didn't just hide their technology, Jackson realized, studying the data streams. They encoded it into our DNA, but with safeguards. We couldn't access it until we developed the scientific understanding to comprehend it. Director Wells' voice came through their comms, tight with controlled excitement. "We're receiving similar revelations worldwide. The memories. They're showing us that every major human advancement was built on principles we already carried within us. We weren't discovering new concepts. We were remembering old ones in new ways." The chamber responded to their growing understanding, revealing more layers of humanity's hidden legacy. Elena saw how early humans had been subtly guided by their encoded memories. Cave paintings that encoded mathematical principles, ancient monuments aligned with astronomical precision, myths and legends that preserved crucial scientific concepts in metaphorical form. "The quantum resonance is reaching critical mass," Sarah announced, her instruments detecting a surge in global activity. "The memory cascade is accelerating. Around the world, humans began experiencing shared visions of their true heritage. A street vendor in Cairo suddenly understood the principles of zero-point energy. A farmer in Kansas accessed memories of terraforming techniques that could reclaim deserts. A child in Tokyo dreamed of starships and woke up knowing how to build them. But it wasn't just technical knowledge awakening. With each passing hour, humanity remembered something far more precious: their purpose. "We were never meant to simply reclaim our ancestors' technology," Elena said, understanding flowing through her as she touched one of the crystalline walls. "They wanted us to surpass it. By developing naturally, by struggling and innovating, we've created new solutions they never imagined." The chamber's displays confirmed her insight, showing countless examples where humanity's primitive developments had improved upon their ancestors' designs. The Egyptian pyramids used construction techniques that were more efficient than the original methods. Renaissance artists discovered principles of perspective that advanced ancient understanding of spatial mathematics. Modern quantum physics theories approach universal truths from entirely new angles. "Director," Elena called through the comms, "I think I understand now. Our ancestors didn't leave us a manual to follow. They left us a foundation to build upon." The chamber pulsed with approval, its quantum signatures harmonizing with the awakening memories in their DNA. Each revelation brought not just knowledge, but understanding of why this path had been chosen. "Look at this," Jackson said, pointing to a new data stream. "The genetic memories. They're not just activating randomly. They're responding to individual aptitudes and interests. Everyone's remembering different pieces of the whole." Elena nodded, feeling the truth of it in her own awakening memories. "Because they didn't want us to become them. They wanted us to become something new, something more. Around the world, the memory cascade continued, but not as a flood of overwhelming information. Instead, it came as a gentle awakening, each person connecting to the aspects of their heritage that resonated most strongly with their own nature. The chamber's light shifted, focusing on a final revelation. The holographic display showed not the past, but possible futures, countless paths forward that combined humanity's rediscovered knowledge with their hard-won innovations. "We're ready," Elena breathed, understanding at last. "This isn't the end of our journey. It's the beginning of something our ancestors could only dream of." As if in response, the quantum network pulsed once more, carrying a message encoded not in words, but in pure understanding. The stars had always been our destination, but the path we took to reach them would make all the difference. The archive. The deeper levels of the Antarctic chamber revealed themselves as Elena and her team descended through its crystalline layers. Each level contained new wonders, new revelations about humanity's true capabilities. The air hummed with quantum resonance, each pulse bringing clearer understanding of their heritage. "These readings are extraordinary," Sarah said, her instruments tracking waves of information flowing through the facility. "The archive isn't just storing data, it's actively processing our current scientific knowledge, comparing it to stored records, identifying where we've surpassed the original designs." Elena paused before a wall of shifting light patterns, watching as it displayed a series of technological progressions. They didn't just leave us their knowledge, she realized. They left us their research methodology. "Look at this." Every major human breakthrough followed paths they couldn't have predicted. The display showed parallel developments across time. Ancient pottery techniques that inadvertently created better heat-resistant materials than their ancestors had used, medieval stained glass crafters who developed superior methods of crystal formation, modern nanotechnology that approached atomic manipulation from entirely new angles. Jackson's voice echoed from an adjacent chamber. "You need to see this. Well, I'm not sure how to describe it." They found him standing before what appeared to be a three-dimensional star map, but unlike anything in their modern astronomical databases. The stars moved in patterns that seemed impossible, following paths that defied known physics. "Those aren't navigation routes," Sarah whispered, her eyes wide. "They're probability paths. Our ancestors weren't just mapping space, they were mapping potential futures." The chamber responded to their understanding, expanding the display to show thousands of possible development paths humanity might have taken. Their actual history traced a unique line through the possibilities, one that combined elements their ancestors could never have anticipated. "Director Wells," Elena called through their comlink, "are you receiving this?" "We are," he responded, his voice tight with emotion. "Similar revelations are emerging at every site. The Brazilian team just discovered records showing how indigenous Amazon tribes developed agricultural techniques that surpassed our ancestors' methods. The Chinese facility is reporting evidence that early human art contained mathematical principles we're only now beginning to understand." The archive's next level opened before them, revealing what appeared to be a vast laboratory. But instead of ancient experiments, it contained records of human innovation, countless moments where primitive tools and simple materials had been used to achieve results that matched or exceeded their ancestors' advanced technology. They were studying us, Jackson realized, reading through the data streams. All this time, we thought we were alone, struggling to advance. But they were watching, learning, seeing how we would solve problems they never imagined. Elena approached a central console that pulsed with stored information. As she touched its surface, new memories cascaded through her consciousness, not of advanced technology, but of human ingenuity. She saw Stone Age hunters developing tracking techniques that would later inspire modern probability mathematics, medieval alchemists stumbling upon principles of atomic theory through pure observation and intuition, industrial age inventors creating machines that approached problems from completely new angles. "The archive isn't just a record of their achievements," she said, understanding flowing through her. It's a record of ours. Every time we surpassed their expectations, every moment we found a new way forward. They preserved it all. Sarah's instruments detected a change in the quantum frequency. The network is shifting. The memories aren't just flowing one way anymore. Our current innovations, our new solutions, they're being added to the archive in real time. Around the world, similar discoveries were being made. The Gobi Desert facility revealed records of human linguistic development that had created more efficient communication methods than the original designs. The Arctic installation contained evidence of early human navigation techniques that had mapped stellar movements more accurately than their ancestors' advanced sensors. "We need to understand what this means," Director Wells said through the comm. "Why document all of this? Why preserve every step of our development?" Elena walked through the archives halls, each step bringing new clarity. The walls around them showed not just what humanity had achieved, but what they might yet become. Each innovation, each unexpected solution, had opened new possibilities their ancestors had never considered. "Because we're not just reclaiming our heritage," she replied, watching as new data streams formed around them, recording humanity's reactions to these very discoveries. "We're completing an experiment that began 50,000 years ago. Our ancestors didn't just want to preserve their civilization. They wanted to see if starting fresh, developing naturally, would lead to something greater." The archive pulsed with confirmation, displaying evidence of human achievements that had already begun to transform their ancestors' original designs. Modern quantum theory approached space-time from angles they had never considered. Current artificial intelligence development followed paths they hadn't imagined. Even human art and music had evolved in ways that added new dimensions to their understanding of reality. "There's something else," Jackson called out, studying the new series of data streams. "These records, they show that our ancestors couldn't solve certain problems, challenges they struggled with for generations. But look at this." The display shifted to show recent human developments, breakthrough solutions to ancient problems, approached from completely new directions. Solutions that had emerged not from advanced technology, but from the unique perspective humanity had developed through its natural evolution. "That's why they did it," Elena breathed, understanding at last. "They didn't hide their technology because they feared we would misuse it. They hid it because they knew that finding our own way would lead us to solutions they could never have discovered." The archive's deepest level beckoned to them, promising one final revelation. As they descended, Elena felt the weight of history, not as a burden, but as a foundation. Everything humanity had achieved, every struggle and triumph, had been leading to this moment. They weren't just heirs to an ancient legacy. They were the next step in human evolution, combining inherited wisdom with innovation born of necessity. And somewhere among the stars, Elena knew, greater challenges awaited. Challenges that would require both the knowledge of their past and the creativity of their present to solve. Ascension. 1 month after the initial discovery, the Antarctic Research Station had transformed into humanity's first bridge center, a nexus point where past and future converge. Dr. Elena Rivera stood at its heart, watching as teams worldwide coordinated humanity's first steps into their rediscovered heritage. "The integration is proceeding faster than we anticipated," Sarah reported, monitoring the global quantum network, but not in the way anyone expected. People aren't just absorbing the old knowledge, they're transforming it. The main display showed feeds from around the world. In Tokyo, engineers had combined awakened memories of quantum propulsion with modern chaos theory, creating drive systems that surpassed anything their ancestors had built. A team in Lagos had merged traditional healing practices with recovered medical technology, developing treatments that worked on principles their ancestors had never considered. "It's happening everywhere," Jackson said, scrolling through reports. "Every field, every discipline. We're not just remembering the old ways, we're creating entirely new ones." The chamber's crystalline walls pulsed with approval, their quantum signatures harmonizing with the global network of human innovation. Elena felt it in her DNA. the resonance of past and present creating something entirely new. Director Wells, she called through the enhanced comm system, "Are you seeing these development patterns?" "We are," he replied, his voice carrying a note of wonder. "The president just finished a global conference call. Every nation is reporting the same phenomenon. The genetic memories aren't overwriting our current knowledge, they're catalyzing it." Elena approached the central platform, where a new type of holographic display had emerged. Unlike the historical records or technical databases, this showed the present moment. Billions of points of light representing human minds across the planet, each one processing the awakened memories in unique ways. "Look at this," Sarah said, highlighting a particular data stream. "When people encounter problems our ancestors couldn't solve, they're not just applying the old solutions. They're creating hybrid approaches that neither civilization could have developed alone." The evidence was everywhere. A farmer in India had combined ancient terraforming principles with local agricultural traditions, developing methods to restore dead soil that surpassed both modern and ancestral techniques. Artists in Brazil were merging quantum mathematics with indigenous patterns, creating new forms of expression that altered consciousness itself. Children in schools worldwide were asking questions that challenged both old and new assumptions about reality. It's more than just technological advancement, Elena realized, watching the patterns emerge. We're achieving true synthesis, the best of both worlds, plus something entirely new. The chamber's deepest level, which they now call the heart, activated with a pulse of pure quantum resonance. Its walls display humanity's collective progress, not as a simple timeline, but as a spiraling dance of innovation and understanding. "The activation sequence is complete," Jackson announced, studying the final data streams. "Every facility worldwide is fully operational. But they're not just running on the old systems anymore. They're evolving, adapting to incorporate our new approaches." Elena touched the heart's central crystal, feeling the flow of information through the quantum network. "They knew," she said softly. "Our ancestors knew that isolation and struggle would forge something greater than mere inheritance. Every challenge we faced, every problem we solved our own way. It was all preparing us for this moment." The global quantum network surged as humanity began its first coordinated steps into the future. But instead of simply reclaiming their ancestors' place among the stars, they were charting new paths, asking new questions, seeing possibilities that neither civilization had imagined alone. "Elena," Sarah called out, her voice urgent with excitement, "you need to see this. The quantum signatures, they're forming new patterns. Patterns that aren't in any of the historical records." The heart's display shifted, showing something unprecedented. The combined knowledge and creativity of both civilizations had begun generating solutions to problems that had haunted humanity since the stars first called to them. Questions of consciousness, reality, and existence itself were being approached from angles that transcended both ancient wisdom and modern science. Director Elena said, watching as new possibilities unfolded before them, "I think I understand now. This wasn't just about reclaiming our place among the stars. It was about becoming something more than either civilization could have been alone." The heart pulsed with confirmation, its quantum resonance carrying not just knowledge but profound understanding. Their ancestors hadn't hidden their legacy out of fear or caution, but out of hope that their descendants would forge paths they had never dreamed possible. Around the world, humanity took its first steps into this new era. But they weren't simply walking paths laid by their ancestors. They were creating new ones, combining the wisdom of the past with the innovation of the present to forge a future that belonged uniquely to them. As the Antarctic sun rose on this new day, Elena watched the quantum network pulse with billions of individual discoveries and innovations. Each person was contributing their unique perspective to humanity's next great journey. They were no longer just children of Earth, nor returning heirs to an ancient legacy. They had become something more, a civilization that carried the best of both worlds while transcending them both. The stars beckoned, not as a remembered home to return to, but as a frontier to be explored in entirely new ways. The Heart's final display showed not a destination, but a promise, the promise of a future that neither humanity's past nor present alone could have achieved. They were ready now, not just to reclaim their place among the stars, but to transform it into something greater than either civilization had imagined possible. As the new day dawned, humanity took its first steps not back into history, but forward into a future that was uniquely their own.